Hello you good people, welcome back to my channel The Nature and the Wild. So today I'm going to show you my personal settings, how I'm setting up my Canon EOS R7 to take fantastic bird images. I got a couple of questions in my comment box and thanks for those questions viewers, my friends. So today I'm going to show you how I'm going to set this up, set this camera for the best performance in the wild. So stay tuned, don't skip, please give me 10 minutes and I hope that will help you and help a lot of questions of yours. So guys, let's start. I have my camera, Canon EOS R7. You can see I connected my EF lens. This is a Sigma 70 to 70 mm, 2.8 to 4.5 aperture, and I connected with my EF converter to the R7. Okay, and this is pretty easy to go through all the settings if you have a lens connected. Thing first, I always put my camera on the manual mode. That gives me overall control on the camera. Okay, and you can also see there are a couple of dedicated buttons on this camera which denote to the ISO and the movie recording options, manual functions, and then is some very important buttons which we can see the back buttons. So I will come to all of these setups and why I use them, but let's go move to the settings. So in the settings, you can see we have the first thing is the image quality. I always tell all my friends use the raw images because they give you more freedom and more chance to work freely with all the dynamic ranges like the brightness, contrast, highlights, shadows. You can tweak them as much as possible in the photo editing software such as Lightroom. Second thing is the ISO speed settings. Always put the ISO auto range and put it to maximum 6400, and that will give you very nice options that your camera will not exceed in an auto ISO mode more than 6400, and you can still preserve some nice images. Although these new cameras have quite a good high ISO tolerance and give you really nice and sharp image. Why I use the auto ISO? Because I cannot predict the lighting condition all the time. If I'm out in the wild and I see like a bird is just sitting and it will take more time to set up the ISO, then I will put it in the auto ISO and just start shooting. And the camera is intelligent to understand what ISO range it should use. So this is pretty important. The metering mode are also very important. I will explain it later, but as of now I put it the evaluate metering. What the evaluate metering will do, it will look the surrounding, the atmosphere of the subject, and will show you the correct exposure to capture the picture. Okay, very much needed the drive mode. Your cameras now, today's cameras can shoot at the high speed and the super high speed or high speed continuous plus, so that means more frame rate according to the camera, but high speed continuous is much more nicer. You can always use it as a go-to option, but if you keep in mind, if you're shooting more erratic subject like a more fast moving subject like a bird, hummingbird, or any kind of them, then always use the high speed continuous. Then you will not miss any of the movement of the subject. Shutter mode, I use the electronic one. I know many people can say, oh, why don't you use the mechanical or first curtain? But I like the electronic shutter mode very well. Maybe out of 100 pictures, maybe 20 pictures will be little bit distorted, but rest of the 80 pictures are really keeper, and I really like this electronic shutter mode. And moreover, guys, I have seen a lot of people broke their shutters very soon. You know why? Because the mechanical shutter and the shock, and these cameras are not well very much sustainable with the mechanical or first curtain. So I suggest use electronic shutter. Your shutter will never break. Image stabilization, always remember this camera, Canon R7 or R series of Canon, has an image stabilization inside, so always try keep it on, because this image stabilizations also work with the stabilizations on your lens. They work together, so this is pretty much needed, and I find it very handy most of the time. Display simulation, what are the stuff you want on your screen, like I have it here, so those kind of things when you picturize You can see the ISO, shutter speed, everything is showing me. So this is the electronic viewfinder simulation. So in the movie, if you are pretty much into making reels and bird movies, I myself used always the 4K slow motion mode, because this camera takes smooth and stunning pictures, stunning videos, so I use it on a 4K slow motion mode. Just put your camera on the movie option, and then if you go back and the record size, you can see I put it on the FHD, you see, 100 fps. So this is my slow motion setting. But in the normal movie option, if I go back and put the camera in a normal, this normal is a 4K fine mode. So in the normal speed, this is also pretty good. Very important option, the next autofocus option. All the bird photographers who want to set your R7, I use a servo autofocus, because then it sticks and it tracks the subject, and then autofocus area is pretty much important. But here you need to make your decision what kind of scenario you are capturing. So when I'm shooting only a small bird, I always put it on my spot autofocus. So bird is just sitting inside the perch. I don't want my autofocus to move everywhere or find other subjects, and my main subjects or main bird got out of focus or blur. So I put it on the spot autofocus when the bird is in a bush or in a tree. Okay, but most of the time when I'm trying to capture the dynamic subject, the bird is flying or the animal is moving, or in action photography, I want to capture each and every subject, I most of the time use whole area autofocus, so the camera can easily detect and manipulate itself to detect the subject. Also, zone 3 and zone 2 are very important if you want to limit your screen area and give the subject more area, camera more area to focus on the subject. So I will suggest for normal birding or normal photography, you can use the spot autofocus, but for the dynamic range and dynamic birds, I always use the whole area autofocus. That's pretty handy. Subject tracking should be always on, so it can track the subject to detect we are photographing animals or birds, so I put it on the animal. But if you're doing action photography, put it on the people. If you're doing more like the car race and all, put it on the vehicle. Camera is very intelligent to find out the right subject what need to be detected. Eye detection is another very good feature of this camera and works perfectly fine. This eye detections can be always enabled, and it will always stick to the bird's eye and during the track. Another important subject, some people as an example told me that, oh, my autofocus hunts. No, your autofocus will never hunt if you switch the track subject, put it on the on subject. This is a very good option and starting point. If you put it on subject, the camera, the moment it will detect the bird or detect your subject, it will keep tracking it. It will not move to the next one. Even if the subject moves, the camera moves the lens, move the autofocus, and it comes back to the same port, the camera will consistently focusing on it. That's very good. And you can also put it on the initial priority to make it more locked. So the camera, the first time you focus on something, the camera will keep sticking on it. But if I put it on subject, it is very much handy and camera can easily be manipulated. Second option is the cases. There are a couple of cases on the R system which you should use. I always use the case 2 because I like to continue track my subject and ignore possible obstacles. So that means my subject is always tracked, and I put the tracking sensitivity if I go locked on. Guys, keep in mind, if you're using a Canon lens, a RF lens like I use 100x500, please use these settings. You will never be failed to capture the image. So I put my camera on the locked on. When I put it on the locked on, my camera, the tracking sensitivity of my camera is locked on the subject. So you remember in the last slide, we talk about the track switch subject. So once your subject is tracked and it's going to locked on the subject, your focus will not move. And then the acceleration and deceleration, try to understand it very well, is the sudden movement of the subject. If your subject is moving too much, small birds are moving too fast, big birds are a little bit slower. So the camera autofocus will react according to the movement of the subject. So this acceleration and deacceleration tracking, I always keep on the 0. I let the camera decide how it should react according to the subject. Okay, please use these settings and it will help you. So with the 0, a stable focus can be achieved. So that means your focus is stable, it will not hunt. Okay, and if you have +1 or +2, it is more suitable that moves suddenly like a small birds. Okay, so if you put it on a like +1, that is also better. So I always try to switch between 0 and +1, and but on my RF the 0 really works perfectly fine, and the camera itself can find out what need to be done. Why we need back button autofocus, I will make another nice video with the nice subject, but just a small introduction. If you use your traditional shutter button to focus into picture, your camera need to adjust the focus every time. But if you only use this one, only use the shutter button to capture move pictures, it is absolutely fine. Just press and click the picture and use your autofocus to lock the subject, to lock the autofocus on the subject. So your camera will not take more time to focus the subject. Okay, so how we set it up? There is a very easy one. You need to go to the customize button. I go to the customize button, and then you can see on this little animation, every button is showing what button is. You can see it's changing the red one on here. So when you go to one of the option, you know which button is talking about. Okay, let's move. So I'm going to the back button autofocus. So if I come to the AF on, and I just have to press on, and then I have to select the autofocus. You see, this is the autofocus option. It says autofocus on button. I select this one, and that makes sure your back button is set to autofocus, and then you exit. You can select each and every button you want accordingly. Like I use my start button here for the ISO. I don't like to move my ISO here. I have to press and then do anything. So what I do basically, I just set this one, my start button, as an ISO. I just press it and then I can quickly change it. So if this give me very nice control over the camera. In the same way, I use my focus button for raw burst mode. I always use the raw burst mode when it's like a pre-capturing or pre-shooting. So you can enable it and then you can shoot. So you can pre-capture the bird motion when you know the bird is leaving the perch. Yeah? So I use this button for that option. Yeah, and then you can select each and every option what you want to do with them with the button. So these 3 buttons are really interesting to set up in this way. How I choose my autofocus points when I'm in the wild. What I did actually, this is a different lens. I don't have the ring, but Canon RF 500, you have this ring, and you can configure this ring for the autofocus 500 setting ring to select the autofocus point. That also you can go and customize button, and when you select here, you can use that. It will not show right now because I don't have the lens connected, but it will show like this, and then you can choose your you can configure that ring. Anyway, so this is pretty much of setting up this camera, and I hope you like this video. Please put your comment and let me know what do you think about it, and please put your questions. Definitely I will get back to them. I will answer them. Thanks a lot for staying with me. See you in the next episode.